Hi, I'm Paul Linney, and you're listening to the House Culture Podcast.
House Culture.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the House Culture Podcast, hosted by me, the managing editor at House Culture, Matt Rouse. Thanks so much for joining us today. As ever, we at House Culture are absolutely delighted to be able to bring a little bit of the club directly into your headphones, or however else you might be listening to this. If this is the first time you've tuned into the podcast, first of all, welcome. And second of all, please make sure you have a dig through our back catalogue of episodes, which feature interviews with the likes of Fatboy Slim, Tall Paul, Brandon Block, Greg Wilson, Terry Farley, Smokin' Joe and many more. Even if you don't recognise the name, I guarantee you they have a fascinating story to tell. And if you want to get to know house culture a little bit better, as I always say, we are a collective of house music fans who have come together through our mutual love of the beat to celebrate the spirit of house music. Instagram is where the party happens, and you can find us there at House Culture Net. Follow that and you'll get a daily dose of all things related to this scene we know and love. Let's get on with this next episode, shall we? In this one, we chat to a DJ who might not have the name recognition he deserves, but is certainly one of the hardest working DJs out there. Whether he's playing to a crowd of clued up clubbers at his residency at Pikes Hotel in Ibiza, or an A-list guest list at the after party of the National Television Awards, this guy uses his deep musical knowledge and feel for the dance floor to always deliver the right vibes wherever they might be needed. His name is Paul Linney. In this chat, he tells us how long it took him to decide to become a full-time DJ.
50 was when I came home and informed my wife that I'd left work and that I was having a career in music. She said, why didn't we discuss this? And I said, well, if we discussed it, I wouldn't be having a career in music.
What his approach is in terms of programming a set.
With house, well, I try to almost compose it and use it as an instrument.
His secret of how he gets everybody moving on the dance floor.
When I played at Pikes, I didn't play anything that I thought I was going to play. I wanted it to be house, and the room just emptied. On the fourth track, they started coming in, and then all of a sudden it all kicked off, and it was brilliant.
And how lucky he is to be doing what he's doing.
I just have to pinch to myself to believe that through something I love so much, that it's just so much fun. I don't work. I've never been so busy, but I don't work. It's just fun.
As has been mostly the case with this second season of podcasts, this conversation was recorded pre-lockdown, so any dates that are discussed might be out of date. So please check all the current situations if you hear us mention something you like. Disclaimer done? Let's get this party started. This is Paul Linney.
House Culture.
Hi Paul, thanks for joining us on the House Culture Podcast.
Hi Matt.
You're one of the hardest working DJs out there. If you're not playing at one of your residencies at Pikes Hotel in Ibiza or the Groucho Club in London, you're jetting off somewhere exotic to play an A-listers party. However, before we get to all of that, we always like to start at the very beginning. How did you first discover a love of music?
The first real recollection was my father making me a crystal radio set to show my age, which basically involved the washing line being changed for an aerial and a little cable coming through into my bedroom and me sitting there with these old-fashioned World War II headphones on, listening to Radio Caroline. Time for bed. Okay, Dad. Upstairs every night. That's all I did was go to bed and listen to music.
Yeah.
And then at school, when I was about, well, it must have been around about the same sort of time, they had a school orchestra, which I tried to get into, and I was absolutely appalling. My timing musically was diabolical.
No way.
Yeah, thank God for MIDI and computers and Ableton and quantizing and all such things.
What was your preferred instrument?
Triangle, which I still managed to hit at the wrong time. There was the scene in The Mikado where Gilbert Sullivan, where beautiful crescendo, and then you had to have a ting. I could never get the ting in the right place, so I managed to get myself booted out the school orchestra. But one of the things they did do was come up to London every other week from Staines. We come to Waterloo and then we go to the Royal Festival Hall and listen to the Robert Mayer's Orchestra. And it was just, I just loved listening to music, and it was all different types of music. It was orchestral versions of pop hits, and then we'd go off and we'd go and do something cultural, like going to an art gallery or something like that, which was really, actually, I found it was a great grounding for moving further on, because from that I think I've got a love for people like Jean-Michel Jarre, Ennio Morricone, things that kind of, especially when I'm playing a chilled set in Ibiza, which I do quite a bit. That kind of music and a knowledge of that and what's going to work, I think helps.
Yeah,
what has helped me. It's been something I've been able to draw on.
Yeah, and at what kind of age was it that you thought, you wanted to have a career in music, or did it just kind of happen?
It just happened. It happened. In terms of what age I'd want a career in music, this is going to sound, I would say 50. I'm 62 this year, so 50 was when I decided I wanted to. I came home and informed my wife that I'd left work and that I was having a career in music. She said, "Why didn't we discuss this?" And I said, "Well, if we discussed it, I wouldn't be having a career in music." So yes, 50 is when I decided. But everything that I did before that, it was just almost inevitable based on everything that had come before. When I was young, in my teenagers years, I'd be listening to the radio, as I said, but we sort of progressed a bit. We got a wireless rather than the crystal set, and I'd tape music for parties and put stuff together. So at parties, I would be that was to get invited to all the parties, because that was, at that age, before you were going to youth clubs, and the only way to get the girls was to get to the parties. And to get to the party, be the guy that brings the music was a pretty ingenious way of ensuring that you got to the good parties.
So you're already being like a selector.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And that sort of moved on to when records came out, talking about 12 inches. I was on those like a rash. I every Saturday down, I'd spend my money and I'd borrow money off my brother. I had to give him, when eventually had to pay him back some serious amounts of money. But yeah, I was getting imports, and they were costing, this has got to be early 70s, mid 70s. You'd be paying £1.50 to £3.
Yeah.
Which was an awful lot of money. It was as much, 2 or 3 times what you paid to get in a club.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of cash, and I was buying 2 or 3 of those a week.
No way. And where were you buying these from, and what kind of music was it that it was?
It was Americans, jazz funk and dance or disco, as it was called. Literally everything now that's been remixed. Yeah, I've got that one. I've got that one.
yeah, it's all come back, hasn't it?
It's all come back. Yeah. But it was just a local restaurant. I didn't come up to London or do any of that kind of thing at that stage.
And you were buying records with a view to be a DJ, to push on that selector. Yeah,
it was more. Yeah, it was to be the person that went to the party with the record bag. Yeah, we have Paul because he's got XYZ records.
Yeah.
I didn't see myself as. I didn't have the confidence to go and be. I want to be a DJ. The first time I really DJ'd was when I was at Chertsey Lock, which is a nightclub. I'd taken business studies at college and went out into the big wide world with all these bits of certificates and paper and thinking that, I was going to earn fortunes, and came down with a bit of a bang. And then this club that a whole group of us all used to go to, the owner said to me, we've got a vacancy for bar manager. I know you've done bar work whilst you were studying. Would you be interested in it? What he offered me was more than I was currently earning, plus I'd live in, which took me about 30 seconds, or not even 3 seconds, to decide yes.
Yeah.
So it means I was able to move out of home, be where all my friends were. Okay, yeah, I had to work, but there was always afters, and it was. Yeah, this was.
So you were living in the club, basically.
I was living in the club. The house. Well, you had the club, and then there was a house next door. Wasn't the best room. That came later when the manager left, and they asked me to be. I then got made up to assistant manager, and the manager left, and they said I'd be temporary general manager, which I was for 3 years. And I got a company car, which was that Merc that I think you saw on Facebook. Yeah. They insured it. They paid the petrol, and I was just driving around in this thing. I was just like, it was. Good. Life was good at that stage. And we had guys like Chris Hill, Robbie Vincent. They were, your Pete Tongs of that era. these guys were coming down and playing at least once a month. And we had Rusty coming down every week on the Sunday. So, yeah, it was good. One of the slots that we would have a newcomer, and we'd have an agency that would put an unknown. Mm-hmm. But they had to be genre specific. They had to sort of like fit in with this jazz, funk, soul thing that we were doing on the Saturday night. And it was snowing, and he didn't turn up, but we still had, the club took 500-600 people downstairs and 200 in the restaurant upstairs. We still had 300 or 400 people in there. Oh, I've seen these guys. I've seen these guys DJ. I'll do it. And that's when I started. It was literally that. And yeah, I loved it. And it went down well. The bit I didn't like was the talking in between records, which is getting showing my age. We had the talking bit between the tracks, which I didn't do. What I attempted to do was mix. Not very well, but it was two garage.
Was it just more in terms of like blending sounds, or rather than
it wasn't your traditional trying to. You didn't have the equipment to do it.
Yeah,
but I had people shouting out, "Tell us what this record is. What are you playing?" And I was like, "Well, no, I've been reading the papers. This one it wasn't the papers. It was." It doesn't matter. Yeah. It was a magazine.
The music press.
Yeah, it was one of the music press. We're all saying about this thing in America where the latest trend was to play the music all at the same BPM and make it continuous and not introduce any of the tracks. Let the music do the talking. And that's what I started trying to do. It seemed to work. Club still went on. The owner loved it. People loved it. They all still turned up. And that's where I got the bug.
The bug. And that was obviously pre-Acid House.
Yes.
What changes did you see between then and kind of that Summer of Love explosion? Was it... I mean, you hear people like Pete Tong and etc. talk about Chris Hill and that jazz funk scene and whatever. Do you think that was the precursor to Acid House?
Yes, definitely.
Or do you think Acid House was just an explosion out of nowhere? Do you think it kind of developed?
No, it's a precursor.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah.
Although I'm only looking at, I have to say, from an outsider, but from what I saw at the beginning to the people that went into the machine that came out, the ones that I knew, because a lot of the guys from Chertsey Lock, where I played, then moved on to Queen's, which was the Flying Club, and you had Charlie Chester and Brand and all that lot there. My door staff all moved to that because they moved with the music. Chertsey Lock stayed, what it was something all things to all people.
Yeah.
But those that thought, well, hold on, there is something more. There was that whole culture, and in that culture there was all the elements, including the drugs and everything. That all moved. Those that were in that that were going for the total experience, they moved over to Queen's and everything else that was happening in Windsor. I mean, it's just amazing. It was all just like on my doorstep. I would occasionally, as I think I alluded to before we started, because when this happened, I got married, and I still am. But we had 4 children over that period of time during the Summer of Love and all the rest of it. But I would still go out occasionally, and could see, think, well, it was totally different. Every time I went, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah, it really is amazing.
And was there an enthusiasm to be like, okay, I'm gonna start playing this type of house music?
That came about. It came about just as I started getting a love of going back to. The children started growing up, and I had to stop drinking. And I was starting to go to parties and thought, well, the only thing I'm going to do to keep my sanity is go back to what I know at parties and start playing records. Unfortunately, I had friends that had big parties. One of the first big parties I did was Elton John's next door neighbour, and he bragged that he actually overlooked Elton John and the Queen, rather than because Elton John said, "Oh, I overlooked the Queen." Yeah. This guy said, "I overlooked Elton John and the Queen," and his garden was. There's about 300 people camping in the garden. They hired all this massive kit in, and I played from, I think it was about 2 p.m. till 10 the next morning. I did the whole thing right through, and it was it was something for the family. The bit I really, really enjoyed was the house set.
Yeah. When was this, sorry?
Oh, this would have been 98.
And what was it about the house set that you loved?
just the fact that you could blend it just all works. Whereas if you're playing chart music or you're playing some indie, I still play an awful lot of indie in-house sets because I like to sort of move things around. I like to have a really eclectic set.
Yeah.
It was the continuity of it and my ability to be able to weave a sort of a thread through house music.
Yeah.
Whereas with charts, there's a sort of it. They were a bit expected. Well, you've got to play this one, you've got to play that one, and it was quite difficult in my mind to be able to continuously keep people's in or keep the tempo going or keep a sort of beat or whatever. Yeah. Whereas with house, it's like I try to almost compose it and use it as an instrument. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, perfect. I mean, we interviewed Nick Muir on the podcast, and he's like half of Bedrock with John Digweed, massive progressive house, and he described it as he doesn't necessarily play progressive house as a genre. Him and John Digweed play a sound. It's not about one specific track; it's about the whole and the set and what you create, putting all those things together. It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yes, now when I play, I will with the right crowds. I'll play 2 tracks and I'll have a third one going, which will have a continuous, whilst I would still be blending everything in and out, but I'll also have a loop that I've done myself that will give it continuity from start to finish. Yeah. And if I'm trying to be really clever, I have another one with a bass line, which I'll bring in and out. Another thing I don't do, which hopefully I can do in some clubs here, where they've given me enough headroom, is actually use volume as a tool. Yeah. So I won't play full volume for a couple of reasons. But sometimes I'll jump on and then you think, what the hell's going? They've got it all turned up to the red, and it's just like I'll pull it right down, and I'll go on and I actually take it. If they're doing that, I'll just completely drop the thing, just drop the whole energy, because I want to reset the levels in terms of the energy in the room, but also in the sound system. Pull it down to give myself some headroom, because it will sound better anyway, and probably louder if they got all the compressors kicking in. But then I've got that room to manoeuvre. I don't like having no room to go when I really want to push it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's, to me, that's all part of what I can do with house music as well. It just allows you that space.
Yeah, like you say, you're composing it. It's like giving the crowd that kick up the arse, when you're in a club and a DJ's playing and, suddenly the volume levels increase, it puts everyone on that different level, doesn't it? If you're maxed out from the start.
Yeah, if you're maxed out from the start. And one of the things I like, it's fairly simple, but whack a load of effects on it. It just, you've got echo and reverb and maybe a delay and the thing, and you're doing a filter as well. You just drop the filter and then you gradually pull it back, and it's just, you can virtually hear what the track is, but it's sort of like muffled, and you just keep going and going and going. But if you've got the room, it just sounds like somebody scraping their fingers on the wall.
Yeah.
When I say the room, the headroom.
Yeah.
And then when you go, and then you let it go, that bang when it all goes back again. If the compressors are all on anyway, when you go bang, it doesn't go bang. It's sort of like it's a damn squid, and everyone's like, well, what were we waiting for? You want it to be able to go bang. Yeah. Properly kick back in. Yeah. Sorry, I get excited.
Well, no, I mean,
because that for me, that ability, and then you just see everybody just like putting their hands in there and they're hugging each other, and they come up and they're like thumping you and put their hands up and slapping your hand. That is just like, wow.
Yeah, you've got to live for that.
It's just so the feeling you get when you do it and you think, yeah, it was the guy that wrote the record. I know it's all about the music, but I've been like the conduit between the guy that wrote the music and the people out there, and that's how in the right environment. I'm not talking about the corporate stuff I do, but we're talking here about in a club. It just works. Yeah, and keep the person away from it once R&B, and you've got Rihanna and all that stuff. That it can impact so much. Just go away, leave me alone. But with the right crowd, it just feeds, and I don't even have to think about what I'm going to play. It just happens.
Yeah, and
the better the crowd, the better my set is, purely because I'd feed straight off them.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you made around, like, it's not necessarily you that's made the track, but it's you that's placed it in that right context.
Yes.
And, you could be playing something that's absolutely banging at 9 o'clock in the morning and it's daylight outside. No one's really interested at all. But you've brought it into the room and like packaged it in the right way and everyone responds to that. But no one's dancing thinking, oh, you didn't make this track. Everyone's dancing because they're like...
The other thing with music, that you make an interesting point there, that, and I can't remember who we were talking about it too, but music being like wine. I think I was having a discussion on Facebook. I said, music's like wine because some of it travels and some of it doesn't. You'll have a wine and you'll be on holiday and you're drinking it and you think, this is brilliant, right, I'm going to take this home to my mates. And you take it home to your mates, you all sit around and drink it and it's... Can I say that?
Yeah.
It's crap.
You say whatever you want, don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, it's crap. Same thing that happened with music. You'll be in a situation... I wouldn't necessarily play with my mates because I listen to everything. I Shazam. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know whether people... I Shazam.
I love it.
I Shazam everything. Yeah. Because I play so many different... And I think, that might work, that might work. And it's probably tracks I've already got, but maybe I've got 2 or 3 gigs hence. I think, I need that. I'll just make sure I pull that and put it in the bucket.
Yeah.
Shazam stuff, and then I'll put it all together. Sort of it's usually Mondays. Mondays is my music day. Usually had a heavy weekend. Sunday I sort of tend this time of year to have off, although in the summer I'm doing the polo gigs, so work. But Monday is sort of listening to music, listening to what I've been sent, grabbing all the stuff I've had off Shazam, and then I'll listen to it and go, well, where's that track that was brilliant? And I go, it's there, and it just didn't. It just doesn't work. Some stuff travels.
Yeah.
But again, then I've had other stuff that I've thought, will it work? Won't it work? And I've played it earlier on in a set in a club just to try it out. But even though I've got a reasonable studio, reasonable sound system, in certain environments, you play it and you think, Christ, where did that come from? There's something going on that you really has to be played loud. And it's a hard thing to try and pick. That took a lot of learning for my ears to be able to listen to short versions of tracks and say that's going to work, that's not, that's going to work, that's not, and that's literally there. Again, I see people talk about there's no selecting anymore. There's too many, but there is selecting. There's, to me anyway, every gig I do, I select beforehand. I don't prejudge it, but I will try and put together, this is how I think it will go. I probably have 4 or 5 different versions of how I think it will go, of tracks which I call by feelings, the different types of feelings that I think, or times of the set that I possibly that is, could play.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll play 2 or 3 tracks and go, oh dear. And have to go, in fact, when I played at Pikes, I didn't play anything that I thought I was going to play because the guys before me were playing quite a commercial party set and the room was going really, really well. Yeah. But that wasn't where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I wanted to go sort of quite... Because I was playing from... I was meant to be playing from 2, but in fact they finished early. They finished at 1:30, so I played from 1:30 till 4. So I was like, what can I do? I know. And I played a sort of Latin-y. So it carried on that party vibe, but I wanted it to be house, and I wanted it to... And I just think when I see how sort of out of it the crowd go before, depending on where I would go with the set. But I took that, and the room just emptied, because the people who had been in there were there because they were listening to... It was just... it was good, I was changing. I thought, well, I've got 2.5 hours. I was like, fourth track in. It's working. But the other problem we had, I don't know if were you there?
No, our co-founder Rich was there.
Rich was there. Yeah. It was the air conditioning wasn't working, and it was... I thought I was going over twice. It was really, really unbearable because the room was just melting.
Yeah.
So on the 4th track, they started coming in, and my wife went, they're all outside dancing, they can all hear it.
Yeah.
She said they're just coming in, and then all of a sudden it all kicked off, and it was brilliant. It was just really, really cool.
Amazing. And how judging the dance floor and honing that skill, I suppose you've done that over a number of years. I mean, how is it just an instinct, and how demoralising is it when, as a DJ, you've come in, like you said, you've played 3 tracks and it's cleared the floor?
Well, I knew I had to do that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't. I wasn't going to follow. That was not me. to follow on what was there. So I knew
Yeah.
I had to empty the floor.
Yeah.
It was just a case of how long was it. I was confident myself.
Yeah.
But then I just had little bits of self-doubt. You see the people like Tony Truman stick his head in and there's an empty dance floor. You do tend to, it's sort of like you go, it's not a good feeling, not a good look.
No. No.
So, I have the
you-
confidence. That's one thing that's happened in the last, since I've sort of got reasonably well known in the last 3 or 4 years, playing with, and also I've had a lot of people that have said, listen to me and said, we want you to, like Mark Jones, I want you to play. Well, what do you want? Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Rusty. Whenever I play with Rusty Egan, I warm up for Rusty. All he'll tell me is, I want it at this BPM. He said, you can go up or down, but when you come into me, this is the BPM I want, and this is the vibe I want. Do what else you want.
Great.
Yeah. I've had Cameron Leslie. I did a private party for Cameron. I had to do we did it at his school, his children's school, on a rooftop. And I do VJing as well, and I projected
All right. Okay.
onto all these things. He wanted like a sunset thing, but it got a little bit carried. I did the sunset, but the sunset was about 10, so from 10 till 12, and I cranked up with it. The police turned up at the school. But he's, having people like that have just say, we know what you do, just do what you want.
Yeah.
Initially, when you start out, you think, well, is it just me? Do I just know? And I wasn't getting the gigs. So I was getting the gigs where people wanted to hear ABBA and Rihanna and all the others. And you think, well, were you born knowing that? Do you not want to educate your mind musically? It's harder to keep those sort of events going and the floor going than it is for a house. So that's really helped me. I'm used to going to a wedding where you're playing to all sorts of age groups, people liking all sorts of genres. Typical wedding will have 80 people.
Yeah.
Only 50 of them are going to dance anyway. You ain't going to get all 50 to dance apart from the first 3 records after the first dance. So you've got to really be able to look at people and hit the ground running. You've got to be able to look at what they wear. If you're lucky enough to be able to be playing background music earlier on, watching people's reactions to how things are said, you've got to take in all the signals.
Yeah.
You really have to. It's people chess.
Yeah.
You just got to look and think, yeah, that one. So then you'll try one. No, that didn't work. Well, that didn't quite work. But if that didn't work, then it's going to be that way. And you've got. And I don't know where I read this, but I've found it was true. You've probably got about 2-3 opportunities to push a floor and make it work. If you screw it, the floor will lose confidence in you. Whether they're stuck, they ain't going to say we've lost confidence in the DJ, but they will.
Yeah.
So you've got to know. You learn that from working corporate and wedding gigs.
Yeah. It's like a herd mentality, isn't it? Yeah.
You've got to sort of gradually build. But if you go bang to push it too early, they're like, well, what's he doing? Yeah, it's you just got to know. You just got to just right.
Yeah, and be the
and almost
ultimate-
tease them, almost take them there and then put them away.
Yeah.
Take them there, put them away, and then bang. One of the best guys I know doing that sort of thing is Eric Murillo. We were fortunate enough that 2 days after I played, Eric played at Pikes.
Yes.
There was about 150 people there, and they were all, without exception, house lovers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, well, September's not too bad, but sort of July and August, you've got a few what I call tourists that are there but don't know quite why. There was none of that. Absolutely, it was one of the best crowds. Apart from I went to the opening when Artwork was playing. Again, that was all locals.
Yeah.
They all knew why they were there. They knew it was all about a certain side of fun and a certain type of music. When Eric Murillo played, and he just, I'd seen him actually at the beginning of the year. He played at Blue Marlin, and he followed on from some Berlin techno guy. I think, well, tech house. It wasn't techno, it was tech house.
Yeah.
I think, where's he going to go with that? Because I was with my son. I said, oh, this is going to be interesting. That gets Eric. And it was this guy that had been on before him. Hadn't played. There wasn't a vocal in sight for an hour. And it was just like everybody's head bobbing. And what was really good was because it was in April, all the VIP were all the locals. They weren't people from another country, like Russia or wherever, with loads of money and just sitting there. Yeah. It was everybody was there dancing, and he followed on. He was brilliant. And I'd only really seen him at Pasha, and when he did he's had his residency there. So he was fairly middle of the road. He was great. He was great at what he did, but I was really impressed. He just followed on, and then he again, I'd say it was about half an hour before he even dropped a vocal in. And then he slowly brought it round to sort of Eric Murillo. But what he did to Pikes was just amazing. Yeah. He just toyed, and that brilliant night, one of the best nights I had there.
No way. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Ibiza anyway. And obviously, it's so intrinsic to the dance music world. What were your kind of first experiences with the island? You've just raised your eyebrows and grinned.
Well, no. Again, like my DJ, I got into it late.
Yeah. Well, I mean, late as in...
I was 50.
Right, okay.
When I first got there, I was 50, so 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I was there 10 minutes and just thought, why have I never been here before? This is my house. This is where I live.
Yeah.
This was in the taxi, and this was like going on the underpass. It wasn't even...
It was a feeling. It's a feeling.
It was the grottiest looking bit. Do you know what I mean?
Just
the first underpass.
Yeah.
But it's like, I just felt, this is where I've always meant to be.
Yeah.
So odd. And be forever grateful for the people that invited myself and my wife. And quite understandable. We don't want to go there, And they said, look, really, we're going to a villa away from everything. You'll love it. And that was it. She was on the phone to me this morning. Have you booked Pikes yet? And when we go into the opening?
I mean, there seems to be there is this whole generation that went through and lived through kind of that summer of love, or just the 90s kind of dance music era, and they've all kind of grown up, they've all got disposable income, they've all got kids that are older now.
Yes.
And they're all able to continue this lifestyle that
there is two sort that there is, yes. You've got these Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
But then you've got another crowd as well that also want different types of music.
Yeah.
The Clockwork Orange. There is a set of music that sort of works with Clockwork Orange, and it will be remixed, and there's some amazing remixes. But you've also got another crowd that fit into the age group that you're talking about, but they'll also listen to a broader spectrum of music.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And there is a place for that kind of nostalgia beefed up to modern standards.
I try and play to both.
But if you're an eclectic DJ especially as well, having that broad sense of...
Don't get me wrong, Clockwork, best parties on the island, really great fun. I saw them in Vauxhall. A friend of mine was running the door and when they went to play at Vauxhall. And I was just like, Christ, this is properly mad. Yeah. Really, just amazing. And Danny, he's mad anyway. Just so full of life, full of energy. Like me, he doesn't drink, doesn't do anything. He just totally gets his buzz and his whole everything out of life of partying.
Yeah, I mean, their story is, it's like some people have kind of made their passion this huge thing that everyone else can feel when they go to those events.
Oh, definitely. Without doubt.
I mean, still want to talk about kind of Ibiza and Pikes and everything. Obviously, you're a resident DJ there and have played there many times. It's an incredible place. We've interviewed Dawn Hindle for this series already.
Yeah.
And actually, at the hotel itself, there are a few kind of places to play in amongst it. There's Chez Fez, where you were talking about earlier. Obviously, there's Freddy's and the poolside. Have you mixed it up between those? And do you have a preference?
I played in the main room with Rusty.
Yeah.
And I played Chez Fez.
Yeah. And how do you approach each one of those rooms?
Well, different sound systems. Although they have beefed up the sound system in Chez Fez to what it was like. They've now got a lot of bass in there, which they didn't have before, and they got speakers all the way round. Yeah. Whereas in the main room, beautiful sound system, spec'd up by DJ Harvey.
Yeah, I think Dawn was saying it was massively over-spec'd for the room, but she wanted those good-looking speakers.
Yeah, Harvey sorted all that out with his flowers. The whole place is just an institution.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's really special. Some people don't get it. Some people, but they're thinking it's going to be a club, but it's not. It's about the people. It's like the hotel itself. The hotel, excuse me, I think is a 2-star hotel.
Yeah, Yeah.
But it's in the top 100 hotels in the world. But if you want some entertainment, have a look at TripAdvisor.
For people reviewing Pikes.
People reviewing it, and they just say, "Dear Mr. Customer, you've obviously come to the wrong place. This hotel is about the people, not about the fittings and fixtures."
I mean, so when you play at Pikes, for you, I suppose talking about you, obviously you're eclectic. How would you class yourself as a DJ, and how do you approach a set at Pikes musically? Is it anything goes?
A set at Pikes, yeah, anything goes. I try and get into the mindset of the people that are there, which is usually pretty spangled at that time in the morning, and they want something that's quite trippy, bit of a house beat, not too fast.
Yeah. What's the perfect BPM, would you say?
118, 114 to 118. No, that's pushing it 118.
Yeah.
It's almost walking pace in there. And occasionally you get, in a 2-hour set, you might be able to go 2 or 3 times more than that to pull it up. They don't want to go any faster than that. It's not like the guys that go on tend to do longish sets. So they take people on a journey. Harvey will do the whole thing on his own. Artwork did it. When Emeraldo went on, he had, he's going to kill me, I've forgotten his name, but one of the local residents came on before him for 2 hours, 10 till midnight, and then Eric went on from midnight through to 4. Yeah, so 4 hours. 4 hours is sort of the typical amount of set that you do.
And you've played the Freddie Rocks event specifically.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of tell us about what those events entail in terms of what they stand for? And
right, Freddie Mercury used to, he had quite a few parties there, but he had his famous party, his birthday party. It was his 40th or 41st, where they had like the dwarfs walking around with plates of cocaine and all that type of goings on, and sort of all sorts of naughty behaviour. And what they decided to do was to, once they named the room after Freddie, because in his lifetime they didn't have a room named after him, they thought they'd have a party. And Mark Jones, he instigated. Well, he ran them in the main room. They used to have Rusty, and then Rusty myself in that main room, and then they'd have. We've passed over to Sister Bliss and also to Felix Buxton from Basement Jacks. Yeah. But these are all people that have been helped in some way or another by Mark's record label, Wall of Sound. They were the first people that distributed anything off of Basement Jacks. I don't know if you're aware of that. Yeah. So it would be, and then it would be maybe they'd play for 2 or 3 hours, and then the last hour would be somebody pretty hard from locally that would finish off. Yeah. And then in the other room it would be me and one other just playing a counter to the whatever was in the main room, a more trippy, chilled version of what was going on.
Yeah. And how much Queen are you allowed to get away with playing?
When they, like I said, they didn't do it for the last year, but prior to that, Rusty would go to virtually all, because that's what he does. In fact, year before last, I played in Zanzibar and went to see Freddie Mercury's birthplace with a picture of Freddie Rock's T-shirt, and they actually took me in. And where they take people, where you can go into the house to have a look around. If the guide said, "What's this T-shirt?" And I said, because it had Ibiza and Freddie Rocks and a picture of Freddie. I said, "Well, I DJ at his birthday parties." "Really?" And I showed him on the phone. He said, "This isn't really his room." He said, "Come this way.
You get the real tour.
You get the real tour." They took me round, and this is where. Yeah, we don't let the tourists in where it really.
Yeah. Awesome.
So went to that, and then got back, and about a month later got a phone call. "Oh, would you like to do the after party for Queen at the O2? "Oh, okay then." So I went and did the after party with Queen at the O2. Yeah. And then I had a T-shirt made of me with my picture of standing outside in his real bedroom, then with it's a Queen DJ, Access All Areas Pass, and this will do.
Those kind of gigs where you are playing those kind of after parties for huge events. You said earlier you're doing the National TV Awards, which is incredible. You mentioned corporate gigs as well, but that's kind of like that step on from that. You are playing to what could be like real musicians and real kind of A-listers in that sense in the room. Is that kind of give you pause in any way, or do you kind of thrive
Used
on
to.
that? Yeah.
It used to. And you have to go very middle of the road.
Yeah.
Being a DJ is, and especially in my position where I'm not a top DJ in terms of, I'm top of where I want to be, but I'm not top in terms of this is Paul Linney and he is known for X, Y and Z, because whilst I'm about to mix it up a bit, I'm being paid to play what I'm known for.
Yeah.
The same thing happens, unfortunately, to musicians, and it must be horrendous for them in some ways. Yes, it must. It's great, loads of money, stand out, play in front of loads of people, but creatively, I'm yet to find a non-frustrated musician that I deal with anyway, because they have new work, they want to bring out new work, and you have this balance of how much of we're going to play something from our new album.
Yeah.
How much of that can they get away with?
Yeah,
Because everybody's just switches off, goes to the bar. All they want to hear is their big hits. It's very, very, very. I'm fortunate. I can play what I want. I'm not stuck to anything. In terms of when I play in these corporate gigs, I will start off right in the middle. Something very, not cheesy, but something that everybody knows. There's a difference between playing something that's number one to something that's everybody knows, still cheesy, but it's there. And then we'll just see where we go. I like at a wedding to finish it off with grand dancing to Insomnia, or because she's allowed me, she got confidence in, I don't know this one. I want them to sort of stop saying that and say, well, I don't need this one, but I'm going to stay because it's quite good.
And I'm having a good time.
Yeah. So that's what I try to educate, but to do that, you have to get them on side first. You can't just go, here we go, we're going to go off guard. Just isn't going to work. They just switch off straight away. Yeah,
it's a fine balancing act.
And you've got to watch, again, all the signals. You've got to watch all the signals. And you've got to, some of the corporate gigs I do, you've got to think, are they there just to talk? Is it a business event where they've got to hear each other? And then I'll just go along. But hopefully what I try and do, even with those, is at the last half hour, just push it just a little bit and let them have a little dance at the end. Because if they stayed that long, they've had a few drinks and they're going to want to dance. They're probably bored with all the talking and everything that's going on. So, yeah. But it's good fun. It is challenging. It's hard work. When you finish, a lot of my sets will be from even the shortest is 4 hours. 4 hours is short for me.
Wow.
But they're at different tempos. Probably most recent thing I did that was New Year's Eve at Putney Pies. So that was 5 hours, and I started at 10. But I had to hit the ground. It was because that was the 2 hour run into midnight, and I finished at 3, and they were all still going at 3. So I had 5 hours of proper keeping it at a level. That's hard work. Yeah. That really is hard work.
Yeah.
But at a corporate, I could be starting at 6, 7 o'clock, just playing background. But then I may not really be working I'll be watching all the signals, but not having to write this next track. If I get this wrong, I've lost the floor and the evening's gone type situation until 10:30.
Yeah.
So I might just properly play for an hour and a half.
And in terms of the places you've played in the world, are there kind of cultural differences between different dance floors and different places around? Or would you say that we're all animals and we all just love beats and we'll get on the dance floor eventually? What would you say? I
would say the best place to give a description of that was Zanzibar. I played in Zanzibar and I arrived and I was playing after, I don't know how long it took us to get over there, about 22, 23 hours with all the stops and everything. And I played 4 hours afterwards. I got there. So we arrived, I went to sleep for 3 hours, got up for an hour, sort of like, where am I? And then was put into this sort of hut where there was about 200 people. And it was on a cliff overlooking the sea. And it looked down and it dropped down about 50 foot onto the beach. But it was just beautiful hut, circular hut, beautiful sound system. And standing in front of me was a couple of Maasai warriors with spears, knives, and eyes like, I don't know what, they were out on stalks, God knows what they were on. There was 2 girls that were Eastern European that were dancing really clubby. There was surfers, there was people from Scandinavia. It was just a complete melting pot. It was a proper melting pot. And the whole place went on. It was just it was such a pleasure because I've never been to Zanzibar before. I was like trying to think, Zanzibar, what are they going to like? Yeah. But where it just where it was about 2 or 3 tracks in, and just that feeling in myself. Right, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
and off we
Off
go.
you go.
Yes, it's like fishing. It's like you're casting your net, and once you've got that line in, you're like, off we go.
And other people kind of follow on.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about Putney Pies.
Yeah.
In the case of Putney Pies, you said it was an amazing space, and there is an incredible roster of talent playing there. It's almost like a mini Pikes in the UK.
In terms of the vibe, yes. If you look on Facebook, there's a guy there who's under Guy Williams' banner. Paradise Productions, I think it is. He played, and 2 or 3 guys people have jumped in and said it's the best venue to play in London. I out of all the places I've played, unless you're talking Fabric or something like that, but in terms of bars and achievable venues, it's pretty special. And it's just the people. It's got water dripping off the side. The toilets are rubbish. It's the same sort of thing as Pikes. It's nothing to do with. It's not flashy. Things don't work.
I think people want that different kind of experience, don't they? That there is a Schreier,
it's about the music.
There is High, there is Printworks, but then these other spaces like Pikes and smaller, more intimate venues is kind of, and you'll get more of a musical education.
Yes,
that's where it's at.
Yes, definitely. You've got a real diversified people that you've had on here. John Trinks, Elisa Lau plays there. Yeah. So I think she was there. I think she was there on the Friday, and George Plant was on the Saturday. Yeah, it's a real. You have John Trinks, Guy Williams I just mentioned. You've got people coming in. Seb Fontaine plays down there. It's the second tier. It's sort of London and Ibiza that all play there. Yeah. And I'm fortunate enough that I play there at least every other month. It's nice to be involved and to be thought, just to see your name with all these other names. You think, wow, this is nice.
It's all happening.
Yeah.
And what else have you got? Obviously, we talked about Pikes, Putney Pies. What else throughout the year? Kind of how does
Vive, as you say it in Spanish, which is now owned by Lionel Messi, the footballer. This is my age. I had my 60th birthday there. Clara da Costa, do you know Clara? Mm-hmm. On the island? She's helped me enormously when I first started. She helps a lot of DJs there. I don't know if people realise this. She'll give you advice, and she's really good, Clara. And I went down to see her play. She was playing on a little beach bar. Unfortunately, the name escapes me. But it's beautiful thing. You sort of like drive up the cliff outside Ibiza town. You going towards Santa Lulia, and you see a white rock, and then you turn Calabonita. It's cool. And Howard Hill, he plays there as well. Okay. And I was chatting to her with my wife, saying, I want to have 60, but got any ideas? She said, well, the one that springs to mind is Pikes. I'm like, oh, yes, perfect. Because I've stayed there, I've played there a few times before anyway. And it was owned by Jason Bull. I don't know if you know Jason. He owned Sands with Carl Cox, and I played at Sands as well. And I'd known Jason for a while. It all seemed, that was great. Jason, brilliant. All the invites went out, everyone bought their flights, and then in April, Lionel Messi bought the hotel. I was like, not sure he's going to quite like what I'm about to do to his hotel. But fortunately, all the staff were kept. Yeah. I mean, I only knew Jason and one member of staff, so I hadn't been there for quite a while. Probably 8 years. I mean, we had a big party. We did sort of a festival thing there, and they didn't book the whole area above where we were having the party. So I did the sunset on the roof. We did the poolside, then sunset on the roof. Then we came in and went into the experience bar underneath. Have you been to the experience bar?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, proper experience in there.
Okay.
And it's like going into Alice in Wonderland, where you go into the little cave, and it's an optical illusion. It gets narrow.
Right. Yeah, I've seen pictures. Yeah.
And you go into there. Yeah, and we had a drummer. We had a couple of dancers from La Troya. It was great, and it didn't cost a great deal. It was really. I was amazed at what I got. Lovely food. Yeah. Anyway, played away, and they booked me. They booked my son.
Yeah. Is your son a DJ as well?
My eldest is the best DJ out of all of us, both technically and from his ear. But he struggles playing to a crowd. Right. He wants to play what he wants to play, and if you like what he did, I mean, he on the side of the Thames where they have that little beach.
Yes.
He used to do the part. To be on do the parties down there, My youngest one is doing the whole thing. He's played out. He's had a season in Ibiza. He'll play. He covers now for me. He works for, do you know, Tim Cullen at the Ministry of Sound. He does work with him. Yeah. So it's sort of in the family. In the family. The youngest one, I do some. We mentioned polo events, and some of them. The best one we did. We had DJ Fresh was the headline, and he just had Louder. Louder was number one that week. Brandon was just coming to the end of the new Brandon. He was there in body, and Hoxton Halls were there. Gary Devlin. Yeah. So there's some interesting characters.
I bet, yeah.
And my son turned up. They asked me would I interlink between everything, and my son was starting off. And I said, yeah, I'd do it, and I wanted X, and I wanted a percentage, and everything was great, so I was really happy. I said, and one more thing, I want my son to warm up for me. Yeah. And I said, well, you didn't think I'd risk it if I didn't think he was up to it?
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing experience. We turned up, and when we got there, they were briefing the car park attendants, and there must have been 40 odd car. Yeah, it was massive. They had something like 2,500 people. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Really, and it's just an amazing. And I remember Brandon running on the stage, clapping when he was playing, and sort of like pointing, and the security guys dragging him off, putting him back in the green room. Stay in there, Brandon.
A real proud dad moment.
Oh yeah, no, it's brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant.
And thinking of the future in terms of
2020.
Yeah, thinking of the future in terms of 2020. What are your plans? And like, you know, you said at the top of the interview that you've kind of just only recently made music like your career. Where do you see it going from now?
I say recently it's been almost 8 years now. It's like full time. I've been doing it I've been doing it to get a decent living for the last 20 years, but I've properly full time for 8 years. Yeah. Just more of the same, because each year I said, well, I don't think it's going to be quite as good. This year has just been amazing. How I had in my mind, right, I'm going to strip this down, I'm going to do that, I'm going to go through this collection, I'm going to file this, and didn't go quite to plan. It's just been the phone and jobs have just been coming in. It's because the benefit of not being in one area means that one thing goes down, another thing goes up. I do a lot of good high-end parties. Yeah. I want to try and combine travel, because I've got the bug for that. I was in Bali, Lombok and the Gillies in May, and then I went into Bali in November. I've sort of Italy, France. Just before Christmas, somebody who was at Pikes flew me and my wife over to Spain to put on a party. They said, do you want to play? I said, yeah, I do, but wife, yeah. Well, we fly over as well. Okay. Well, and put her up. Yep. Yeah. It's just I said, there you go, dear. 2 weeks before Christmas, we were flown over. And I said, my granddaughter's coming. So was one of my sons and a load of other. I said, that's all right. They put a big stretch Merc on when we came to the airport. And I said, there you go, everyone enjoying themselves. I just had to pinch myself. I'm 60 odd. Yeah. I should be, I don't know, growing up. Never. No, that's a Peter Pan syndrome. Yeah. I just want to do more of the same. I want to travel with my music. That's what I've sort of targeted myself to do, is to try and get more gigs further afield. I've now got the confidence to do anything. I wouldn't mind playing in a really big venue for a house event. I've done big events corporately. I do. For Great Ormond Street, I'm the resident for all the big fun runs. So I've played to 10,000-15,000 people in Hyde Park for a couple of hours. You know, I've done the Copper Box, which I don't know if you know this side. There's 5,000-6,000 in there. I did that for Bauer Media. Yep. Now you're talking about, there might be musicians in front of you. I'm playing there to every bloody radio DJ in the country. No, actually, I better not say names. Where certain people were coming on that had a hit on the radio, and they had to play a couple of tracks. Quite a few of them just went press play and like wave their arms about a bit. Yeah. But my job was to play in between each. So I'd have them beside me, then I'd have to play. But I had headphones on But I also, on one side was mine, on the other side was the house manager, because you'd have bands warming up.
Right.
All Saints, I don't know, there's whatever was number one and stuff. There's about 5 or 6 decent, top level bands. But they say, right, they're going, no, hold on, no, you play another track, and you're trying to lead into what was going on. So you'd have the counting down, and that kind of thing is I enjoy it. I enjoy the technical side.
Yeah.
We were mentioning before we start, I do VJing as well. I mean, I've done gigs at the Roundhouse, Guy Gerber. Well, I did the festival for London Tel Aviv festival, the Roundhouse the year before last. And the Infected Mushroom, which is a psych trance band. Yep. I did all the visuals for them. I was sitting there playing. I had the house sounds come in. It was triggering some of the effects, and I was playing it off a drum pad. So that was good. But as part of the party, said, we've got a DJ, Guy Gerber. Would you like? I'm like, well, yeah. We'll have a few backstage passes. It was really funny. The son said, "Where are you going, Dad?" I said, "Here. We can't park there." I said, "I can." Watch. He's just like, don't believe this. The next thing he's in the booth with Guy, and it was just amazing.
Well, this is also like, all the good that you've given to the universe musically in this way, it's kind of paying itself back to you now.
It's karma. I just love it. It's just so much fun. I just have to pinch to myself to believe that through something I love so much, that it's just so much fun. I stopped working. I don't work. I'm more active than I've ever been. I will be doing something. I will be on the internet, or I'll be looking something up, or listening to me till 12, 1 o'clock this morning. I was up at 7, doing stuff all the time related to it. I've never been so busy, but I don't work.
Yeah, keep it up.
It's just fun.
Awesome. Kind of try and wrap it up. It's incredible how your life has changed musically, and we always try and get our interviewees' input into our House Culture Perfect playlist, which you can find on Spotify. The 5 tracks based around specific themes, and so we always kick it off with the catalyst, a house music track that kind of inspired you from the off. And just kind of for each one of these, I suppose what we just want to know is just give a little bit of a shorthand experience and what these tracks mean to you. So the first one, the catalyst, was
Ultra Favour by Heather and Farley. And it would appear that it's not just mine. I don't know if any of you have had a listen to Clockwork. We've talked about Clockwork Orange. Yeah. If you have listened to the sets, I think there's about 19 of them they just posted from the Fabric gig.
Yeah, I was there, yeah.
You were there.
Yeah.
You may have noticed that Ultra Favour was the most played track. Because I
definitely heard Heather and Farley play it. I remember that. Yeah.
For my sins, I listen to what everyone else is going. And that's what, getting back to what I said about that thing about choice. I'll just go through everything and I'll just see how it sits in that set and think that set actually, how that works. Yeah, that track will work for me in that situation. I'll whiz it off to another bar set. So my thinking works. But going through that, it was, another one's played it. Another one's played it. It's one of those.
It's a classic.
It is a classic, but it's not an overdone classic. Yeah, it's not Promised Land. It's not Show Me Love.
Yeah,
it's
right.
And there's also a couple of remixes. Qatar, some KATTA have done one where they've got like a double hit on the bass, on the snare, which I then loop and take into or I'll bring it in quite early, and you hear that come through. Yeah, it's one I like. I went to the Aquarium, is it called? In Old Street. Old Street. On an office party. Yeah, I was a bit naughty there, and that's where I heard that going off.
Yeah,
that's you wake up the next day and there's still a track going through your head. You know what I mean? It's just going round in a loop. And
the next time you hear it,
you're like, You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're saying. I'm sure everybody who's listening does. Yeah. And so a floor filler for you. What is your? I know it's always difficult to nail these things down. It depends on the crowd and everything.
Right. It depends on the crowd, but it's also what I quite often start off with. If I have that situation where I was saying before, where I'm like on as the main act and somebody else has been hammering it beforehand, and I want to take or I want to change the vibe.
Yeah.
This one's perfect for it. For you, 4 Measure Men. You've got that bit of the I'm not going to sing that one. But it's you just got that, and it goes on for about just over a minute.
Yeah.
I didn't know the time exactly because I played it. It was the first track I played after. No, the second track I played after New Year. I played New Year's Day first track, and then I played this one to take it because I've been playing sort of disco-y, housey remixes, sort of party because it's a party. New Year's is a party. Yeah. So I was playing housey party tracks up until New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Then we had the gongs, and I wanted to say, right, punctuation mark. It's a punctuation track, but it works because it gets everyone's attention. Everyone's like, they either know what's coming, or if they don't know what's coming, they're sort of like, what's coming? And when this one, the way this is particularly how this mix works, when it comes in, it's like, wow, this is a good track.
Yeah, it's got like that enveloping kind of feeling on it. A Sunsetter.
Oh, this is just a standard classic, but it's just one I prefer myself. It's Talking to Myself, 98, Coney remix by Electribe 101.
Yeah, I mean, that remix, it's one of those ones where almost, I don't want to say improves on the original, but it's a different beast, and it's almost as good as the original, I think.
Yes, it's the one I play when I do a Sunset mix, and I'm making up of classics. Yeah. Sometimes I'll do opera. I'll do, as I say, Morricone, and then they all do, if everyone's trying to outdo each other with just trying to find something that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And they don't say. I mean, you see them all going shit with the phones. So yeah, but that one works. I did a video actually of the sunset when I was playing it at Esvive. Now I know Esvive's on the other side of the island for sunsets, but the sun still goes down there and it goes behind the mountains behind Esvive. So you do get a sunset. You just don't get the spectacular one you get on the north of the island.
Yeah.
And I posted it on Facebook, and loads of people said, "What is this track?" And I think, you take the pee, but yeah, it had quite a lot of impact. Yeah, it's one that people do like, and I get people come up and ask, "What is it?" Because they're not all my age. There are people that are younger and haven't heard that, and it's in.
And that's the thing. It's like sometimes you've got to remember that some people haven't grown up in this scene, and just not be precious about. If people want to know something that to us is kind of can seem an obvious track, that everyone knows, not everyone knows it.
It's a good point, because that was another thing where I was thinking, oh, that's too obvious.
Yeah,
I've started introducing a few of the ones and getting quite a good response. So I'll try every so often to drop something in I think that's obvious because it's so obvious to me, but I like it, so that possibly feels into that as well.
Yeah, a tearjerker, something that fills you with emotion. Probably a track that's more famous than the film it comes from, I think. I don't think I've ever seen the film.
I haven't either.
But yeah, it's Ennio. You've already mentioned his name a few times.
Yes. This track is Come Madalena
by Ennio
Morricone. Yeah. Very similar in terms of how it's set out as For You. In terms of if you look at how it works, you have a very long very long and slow build up, then a quick crescendo, and then drop, long build back up again, and it has the same sort of impact in the way when it does that. But it's just one of those tracks that. But I remember the first time, I've heard it loads of times, but I heard it played at Pikes, and my wife said, "What's up with you? You look like you've seen a ghost." They were playing it at the pool. We were having the standard Pikes Sunday roast. Yeah, I was like, I'm all right. It really was. It's just one of those tracks. Just I don't know why it hits me.
Yeah,
just does.
It's just a feeling. Isn't it? The guy's a genius. And a last tune. The crowd are asking for one more. What do you play? All Right, Brad Carter mix, Red Carpet. Again, it's the same sort of thing. It's a slow build up. It gives people. It's got those chords. It's not rushed or hurried. It's just a statement, and it's one of those sort of tracks that at the end of a good night, people are hugging each other and like they're clapping, and it's just a feel good song. Yeah. It's got that great feel-good vocal on it as well. Yeah. It's got everything. It has the piano keyboards, which it's a bit handbaggy, but the way they're done, they're just so well produced. They're not a cheesy, but it's got that part, so it appeals to that part of the audience.
when it kicks in, it's got a proper house kick and it's got a vocal. Yeah. So it sort of ticks an awful lot of boxes.
Yeah.
As much as I like to just be banging away with a bit of tech, and you have to give the crowd what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Our final question that we always try and wrap up with is, we are obviously house culture and we live for the love of the beat, and it means so much to us in our lives, and it's given us so much. What does the whole culture of house music and dance music mean to you, and what has it given you in your life?
A reason to live, confidence, friends. I'm an alcoholic, and if it wasn't for my wife and house music, I wouldn't be here. It's as simple as that.
That's incredible. This is giving you your life, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, just sums it all up.
Well, it's the truth. I had to have something when I stopped drinking, and house music was it.
I think that's probably the perfect place to kind of finish, I think. Thanks so much for sharing all of that. Thanks, Paul.
No, thank you. It's been good.
Good. Well,
House culture.
Well, we got pretty deep at the end there, didn't we? It was great to hear his story and to also understand how music has literally saved his life. Thanks for sharing all of that with us, Paul. Wasn't it also fascinating to get that anthropological insight into the workings of a dance floor? You have to be a real master of your craft in order to entertain all manner of different people, and Paul's enthusiasm for this really shone through, I think. And to spare Paul's blushes, the name he forgot of the DJ who was on before Eric Murillo at Pikes was Andy Baxter. As I said at the top of this episode, pretty much all dates discussed in here are in a state of flux. However, as of July 2020, Pikes Hotel has reopened. You can catch Paul playing there in early September. If you can't make that, you can listen to the very special mix he put together for us at House Culture on our SoundCloud page. Thoroughly recommend it. And if it's more sick beats you're after, you can find all of the tracks we enthused about on our Spotify playlist. Just open up your player, search for House Culture Perfect Playlist, and you'll be presented with a plethora of tunes that feature sounds from every corner of this thing we call house, all chosen by our podcast guests past and present. Once you've followed the Perfect Playlist on Spotify, please support this podcast by loving, liking, tweeting, sharing, by leaving us a rating or a review on Apple. This is really important. Help us continue to create these episodes that we hope you love listening to. It could also get you a shout out on a future one as well. This time the lucky shout goes out to the person who goes by the name of Cami Miami, who after listening to our episode with the scumfrog Jesse Hoke, got in touch on Instagram to tell us that she thinks he's such an amazing producer. She loved his remixes from the 2000s. Thanks for dropping by, Cami. Hope you also love all of the other episodes that we've put together just as much. Any more comments can be made by hitting up our Instagram feed at HouseCultureNet or following the hashtag TrueHouseCulture. This way you'll be kept informed of all the parties that are currently happening all over the world. And finally, if you want to reach out to me, Matt Rouse, you can do it directly on Instagram at DJ Matt Rouse. Thanks for listening, stay safe, see you next time.
House culture.